Started. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Welcome everyone to our last meeting before Ramadan. Inshallah, during Ramadan we will have guest speakers starting from second Saturday of April 9th. And we will have different guest presenters sharing what they found insightful from the Quran in light of what we have been studying so far during the year. So may the Quran be a light and guidance for us at all times, and especially during Ramadan. May we have deeper understanding and deeper appreciation and confirmation of the Quran in our hearts, in our minds, and inshallah also in our being and living. So we are going to continue talking about Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam in light of Risale-i Nur from Bediüzzaman Said Nursi. We have been reading about a variety of his evidences of his being a prophet, and with an emphasis on his key message. And what is it about the Prophet ﷺ's message that is so unique, life-transforming, and thereby becomes a confirmation of his being genuinely sent by the Creator of the heavens and the earth. So it has been a journey of 7 classes so far, all of which are available as recording in YouTube on the Receiving Nur YouTube. And today we are going to look at the last bit, 14th droplet, 14th point, if you will, about Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam's evidences and really unpacking the meaning of his messengership. As usual, Dr. Yamina is leading us in the study, and as usual, you're welcome to join in with comments and questions. You're welcome to join in during the study, and you're also welcome to share comments, questions at the end as well. So without further delay, I turn to Dr. Yamina. Jazakallah khair, Dr. Yamina.
Thank you, Isra. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. So this 14th droplet is about the Quran, since it is the message that the messenger, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, peace and blessings be upon him, brought to us. So the more miraculous the message of the Quran is, the more evidently this is an evidence to the messengership of Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. Not only it's an evidence to his prophethood, his messengership, but also to the nature of his message, the nature of his mission on earth, which is related closely to the purpose of our existence, of course. So, Bismillah, inshallah, let's go through. If we read once, so we get an idea, and then go back and reflect on it point by point, inshallah. This is the last droplet, and inshallah, our last meeting together on this 19th word, which is related to the messengership, the evidences for, and the meaning and the significance of the messengership of Muhammad ﷺ. And we will carry on, inshallah, after Ramadan, bi'idhnillah, if it's meant to be, with the 20th word, the next coming word, which is also related to the Quran.
And I wanted to make one quick announcement. This weekend, inshallah, there will be a retreat in Utica, New York, arranged by sisters up there. And while it will be in person, and in-person registration pretty much ended, but there will be an opportunity to listen in the main sessions of lectures, as it was announced in today's Receiving newsletter. There will not be really opportunity to interact online because the focus will be in person, but you will be able to, inshallah, listen in, and hopefully you'll be able to have recordings for later as well. For more information, you can see today's newsletter. So with that, we can start. Is there anyone who would like to read? Okay, so then if not, I'll go ahead and read. Bismillah. 14th droplet. The all-wise Quran, which is a treasury of miracles and the supreme miracle, proves the prophethood of Muhammad salam, upon him and divine unity so decisively that it leaves no need for further proof. Here we shall discuss the definition of the Quran and also point to some effulgence of its miraculousness, which were criticized by some people. So then it will have a very deep definition of the Quran. As a list, I'll read it. The all-wise Quran, which makes known to us our sustainer, Rabb, is thus. It is the pre-eternal translator of this great book of the universe. It's the revealer of the treasures of the divine names concealed in the pages of the earth and the heavens. It is the key to the truths hidden beneath the lines of events. Also, the Quran is the sum, foundation, and plan of the spiritual world of Islam, and the map of the worlds of the hereafter. The distinct expounder, lucid exposition, articulate proof, and clear translator of the divine essence that attributes safa and deeds, sha'n. It's the instructor, true wisdom, teacher, and guide of the world of humanity. It is both a book of wisdom, hikmah, and law, sharia, and a book of prayer and worshipful servanthood, ubudiyah, and a book of command and summons, and a book of invocation, dhikr, and divine knowledge, ma'rifatullah. It is a book for all spiritual needs, and it is a sacred library offering books appropriate to the various ways of all the saints, al-awliya, and the veracious ones, al-qeen, all the purified ones, al-asfiya, and the discerning scholars, al-muhaqqiqeen. Now, consider the effulgence of miraculousness in Quran's repetition, which are imagined to be a fault by some critics. Since the Quran is both a book of invocation, dhikr, a book of prayer, dua, and a book of summons, da'wah, the repetition in it is desirable. Indeed, it is essential and most eloquent. It is not as the fault the people imagine. For the mark of invocation, dhikr, is illumination through repetition. The mark of prayer, dua, is strengthening through repetition. The mark of command, amr, and summons, invitation, da'wah, is strengthening through repetition. Moreover, not everyone is capable of always reading the entire Quran, but most usually can read a surah, chapter. Therefore, the most important purposes of the Quran are included in most of the longer surahs, each of which became like a small Quran. That is to say, so that no one should be deprived, certain of the Quran's aims like divine unity, the resurrection of the dead, and the story of Moses have been repeated throughout the Quran. Furthermore, like bodily needs, spiritual needs are various. Human being needs some of them every breath. Like the body needs air, the spirit, soul, ruh, needs the word hu, huwa, he. Some are needed every hour, like in the name of God, Bismillah, and so on. That means the repetition of verses arises from the repetition of need. It makes the repetition, the Quran makes the repetition in order to highlight the need and awaken and excited and to arouse desire and appetite. Also, the Quran is a founder. It contains the fundamentals of the clear religion and the foundation of the world of Islam. It changes human social life and is the answer to the repeated questions of groups. Repetition is necessary for a founder in order to establish things. Repetition is necessary for strengthening. Clarification, verification, and repetition are necessary to emphasize the fundamentals. Also, the Quran speaks of such mighty matters and nuanced truths that numerous repetitions are necessary in different forms in order to establish them in everyone's hearts. This being, the repetitions in the Quran are only seemingly repetitions. In reality, each verse has numerous meanings, numerous benefits, and many aspects and levels. In each place, a seeming repetition is mentioned with a different meaning for different benefits and purposes. Also, the Quran's being unspecific and concise in certain matters about the universe is a flash of miraculousness for the purpose of guidance. It cannot be the target of criticism, and it's not a fault like some atheists or some people imagine. If you ask, why does the all-wise Quran not speak of beings in the same way as philosophy and science? The Quran leaves some matters in brief form. It's and a way that is easy to view. It does not disturb general understandings and does not weary or tax the minds of ordinary people. Why is this? By way of an answer, we say, philosophy has strayed from the path of truth. That's why. Also, of course, you have understood from past words and lessons, the all-wise Quran speaks of the universe in order to make known the divine essence that Are you able to hear okay? I think some.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so then the all-wise Quran speaks of the universe in order to make known the divine essence that attributes, sifa, names, isma. That is, it explains the meanings of the book of the universe to make known its creator. Thus, the Quran looks at beings not for their sake, but for the sake of their creator. Also, the Quran addresses everyone. In contrast, philosophy and science look at beings for themselves, as scientists in particular. Given this, since the all-wise Quran makes beings into evidences and proofs, the evidence has to be obvious so that it will be quickly understood in the general view. And since the Quran of guidance addresses all classes of people, which form the most numerous class, needs guidance which is concise with unnecessary things being vague, and which brings subtle things closer with comparisons, and which does not change things which in their superficial view are to an unnecessary or even harmful form, lest it causes them to fall into error. For example, the Quran says about the sun is a lantern, for it does not speak of the sun for itself and its nature. Rather, the Quran talks about the sun as a sort of mainspring of an order and center of an arrangement. And the order and arrangement are mirrors showing the knowledge of the Maker. It says, the sun runs its course. الشمس تجري. That is, the sun revolves. Through calling to mind the orderly disposals of divine power in the revolutions of winter and summer, and day and night with the phrase, the sun revolves, it makes understood the Maker's tremendousness. Thus, whatever the reality of this revolving, it does not affect the order which is woven and observed, and which is the purpose. It also says, and sun وَجَعَلَ الشَّمْسَ سِرَاجًا. Quran 71:16. Through depicting the sun, with the word lamp, with the word lamp, and the world in the form of a palace, and the things within it as decorations, necessities, and provisions prepared for humans and living beings, and inferring that the sun is also made to serve as a lamp or candle holder, it makes known the mercy and bestowal of the Creator. Now look and see what this foolish and prattling philosophy says. The sun is a vast burning liquid mass. It causes the planets which have been flung off from it to revolve around it. Its mass is such and such. It is this, it is that. It does not afford the spirit the satisfaction fulfillment of true knowledge. It just gives a terrible dread and fearful wonder. Philosophy does not speak of the sun as the Quran does. You may judge for yourself the value of the matters of philosophy, whose inside is hollow and outside ostentatious. So do not be deceived by its glittering exterior, and don't be disrespectful towards the most miraculous expositions of the Quran. And there's a prayer that we can leave to the end, inshallah.
Thank you. So at the start, he's saying the all-wise Quran, which is an expression that is used commonly in Arabic, Al-Quran al-Hakim, also Al-Quran al-Karim. The all-wise Quran, which makes known to us our sustainer. The all-wise Quran, which is a treasury of miracles. So unless someone has actually actively studied the Quran, we wouldn't know. But if you want to know, then you can study. There are two aspects, and both of them are related to each other. One is the language, and of course the second one is the meaning. And the language is miraculous because of the way it's used in order to convey specific meaning or an array, lots of meanings. Sometimes it's specified, and sometimes it's in a way that it can be understood in various ways, which is also meant. Often you may find lots of studies that are focused on the usage of the language, and that can be a little daunting, especially if you are not familiar with the language. I mean, even if you are an Arabic speaker, it doesn't mean that you will understand that, because it needs a special training. But apart from that, especially in the tafsir of, in the Risale-i Nur of Imam Sa'id Nursi, rahimahullah, he emphasizes the meaning. And so even when he does refer to grammar, he doesn't give too many details, so everyone can somehow follow. Although he has work in Arabic where you need to know to know Arabic and Arabic grammar, I think, to be able to follow. So you find both. So it's a treasury of miracles and a supreme miracle. It's God speaking to us about the meaning of our life, the meaning of everything happening around us. So if we truly can confirm this connection, this relationship, then this in itself is the supreme miracle. And therefore, it proves, the more we confirm the truth of the message of the Quran, the more it proves the prophethood of Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and divine unity. And the main, most foremost goal of the Quran is divine unity. And that's what the Prophet Muhammad also claims, and that's what he taught all his life. So decisively, so this, it proves it so decisively that it leaves no need for further proof. Here we shall discuss, this is the 19th word, and in the words that came before, there are lots of, since we came here after reading only a few words, but if you want to, maybe at the end he's going to say, if you want to learn more about the miraculousness of the Quran, there is the translation from Arabic, the original is in Arabic, Irsharatul I'jaz fi Madan al-Ijaz. It's about the miraculousness of the word order and the language in the Quran, and therefore the outcome is the meaning implied. And there is also the 25th word that are particularly on the miraculousness of the Quran. But anything else, anything we've been studying so far related to the Quran is an evidence of the miraculousness of the message of the Quran, and proves and indicate the source. Whoever is speaking in this Quran knows the creation and knows us, knows me as a human being. The more we study, the more we live consciously, the more we start testifying, we start seeing, observing, living, experiencing, and therefore testifying, doing the performing the shahada that this really, truly is the word of God. It is God speaking to me in the Quran, and in parallel at the same time in the creation here and now. That's why he's saying there's no need for further proof. It means you go and study the Quran. Here we shall discuss the definition of the Quran. So this is, I think, very important, at least to before we start studying the Quran and reflecting, it is good to know what we are studying. because then we are clear about our expectations. Because sometimes you see people there will be objection, let's say not people, but generally objections about this and that from the Quran, but you wonder if they know what the Quran is about. It's like in a very, very simplified way. Let's say I'm reading a book of geography. And then it's talking about the geography of certain country. And then there is, I say, why isn't it talking about the economic crisis that happened, I don't know what year and this and that? People will look at me like, do you know what you are reading? You're reading a book of geography. It's not a book of economics or some other things. So when we know what we are reading, then our expectations are accordingly. And this is the example I gave is very general, but it's not only about, I'm not only talking about someone who is objecting about the message of the Quran, but also people who understand the Quran in a very narrow way because they never really studied it with an open mind, always referring when they need it or reading it without really reflecting. And when they have something in their mind, they go and look for something in the Quran to corroborate their point. So it's not in order to understand the Quran, but it's to use it for something else. And so it's very common to see people who think the Quran is all about do and don'ts. It's all about the religion of Islam. I'm not talking about non-Muslim, I'm talking about Muslims. The others, they get it through us. They look at us and they say, they understand the Islam in the way we project it and mirror it. And so they understand that it's all about halal haram. You wonder if they even read the Quran from the beginning to the end. So we can, unless we know what the Quran is, we can misunderstand it, misappropriate it, or may have objections that are from the beginning, they don't make sense because we are asking something from, for instance, if someone says, why doesn't the Quran talk about technology? It means the question is coming from someone who doesn't understand what the Quran is about. So here we told the all-wise Quran, which makes known to us our sustainer. So here is the most important point. Quran equals God speaking about everything, how everything is making him known. So he's speaking in order to make himself known. He creates everything in order to make himself known. This is very important. And thus, the Quran is the pre-eternal translator of this great book of the universe. What does it do? It translates.
Can I just add this?
Sorry?
Can I just add to what you've just said? I have seen definitions of Quran by Muslims for others. And oftentimes it's simply saying things like, it has guidance and for life and rules for life, or it has come down in 23 years to Prophet Muhammad, and Muslims believe it's word of God, and it gives us guidelines for everyday life. So it really sounds like a rule book or something like that, and something that some people believe in. But this isn't really a definition of the Quran. Yes, and there is guidance, particular guidance for some guide.
It's part of it.
Yeah, but it's not
what it is.
And to tell that
reducing it to that.
And then a lot of the space is taken up by 23 years to someone who's called Muhammad alayhi salam in Mecca. All of these kind of locators and particular historical information, it's true, but it doesn't really define, what is the purpose of this book. And you're right, it's oftentimes because we ourselves are not aware of the point of the Quran. The basic idea is that you need to believe in this, and there are some rules here that you need to follow, or some stories that you read, and we have a sense that there is some guidance here, some teaching here, but it is very vague. And so I really find it helpful that here it's more specific, much more specific and clear. What is really this book about? And it isn't something unique to Muslims, it speaks to, invites to belief and surrender, but it isn't something that we can particularize and set aside as, oh, this is our sacred book. No, it isn't about defining a particular people or defining a community. It's really an address from beyond, from the unseen, transcendent reality. So
in order to be a believer, I have to confirm the message of the Quran. In order to confirm the message, I have to go and look at it. Before I look at it, how do I use something when I don't know what it is? So I have to know, in order to read it properly, I need to ask it the right questions, because when we are reading, we are always consciously or unconsciously, and we'd better do it consciously, otherwise we won't understand, because we're bringing unconsciously the questions we bring, why we understand something or we don't, or why we sometimes look at the same text and understanding differently, because we're comparing with things that we have in mind, questions that we have, does it answer it, does it not? But if we don't know what we are reading, what the Quran is, then it's going to be very hard, and we can very easily miss the point, although what we get could be totally correct, but it could be reducing it to something so minimal and missing the point. So the point is that the believer, the Muslim, the believing Muslim, is someone who somehow, at some level, is confirming the message of the Quran. But growing up, it was not like that. It was like the Quran, our book, our sacred book. Of course, we accept it. Of course, so therefore, it's always about the Quran says so. Of course, I'm not even going into when an ayah or a passage from the Quran is quoted. Sometimes it depends on how you interpret it. So I'm not even going into the interpretation. The fact that it's being quoted as the evidence, whereas in the Quran we are told to confirm that first, because in confirming we are learning to read the signs, the ayat in life, in the universe, in the creation, in the way we are taught in the Quran. So everything becomes Quran. Everything is reciting the beautiful names of God. And we are also reciting and everything together with them and glorifying God. So it's very interesting that he starts with, it is the translator of the book of the universe. If it is the translator, then it means when I go and to the book of the universe, I have a point of reference. I can go and check. It says it means that I go to the universe, look, and I can come back and say, yeah, yes, Sadaqallahu al-Azim means, yes, God, I confirm that what God says is the truth. So usually we learned to say Sadaqallahu al-Azim at the end of when you hear the recitation, at the end you say Sadaqallahu al-Azim. It's a formula. But I don't even know if it is true or not. How am I saying God says the truth? So it's the translator, it's translating. In order to find out if it's the translating or not, I have to also be careful about the book of the universe. It means everything in life is meaningful. The revealer of the treasures of the divine names, concealed, so it's revealing the divine names to us. And where are these divine names? They are concealed in the pages of the earth and the heavens. It means, again, in the creation. Things are happening, and in those things are concealed the beautiful names. And it is through the message of the Quran that we learn to find that the divine names. It is the key to the truth hidden beneath these lines of events. So things are happening, and you can learn to read between the lines and find the truth that they are saying, just like we learned when we were reflecting on Surah Yusuf alayhi salam. In one ayah it says, the king says, I appointed Yusuf alayhi salam. Right after, the ayah says, God has appointed. I mean, the king didn't have any knowledge of his own dream. He didn't have even control over how did he have the dream first. So a dream came, he didn't know its meaning, and then the dream was related to 7 years of plenty, of abundance, and 7 years of famine, of drought. And Yusuf alayhi salam was inspired with the solution to that, to the meaning of the dream and the solution to it, to the issue, to the problem. How come the king thinks he is appointing, but right after it says that God, of course, only God, only the one who has control over all these things can be appointing Yusuf alayhi salam. So how to read those events, in that particular case, the events in Yusuf alayhi salam's story, but that's, the Quran is the key to teach us how to find the truth hidden beneath the lines of events. And that was one example. Also, the Quran is the treasury of the favors of the most merciful and pre-eternal addresses, which come forth from the world of the unseen beyond the veil of this world of the seen. So this world, the world of the unseen, is everything is pointing to it. But if we live in heedlessness, we only see things are happening. We are taught in the Quran to pause and reflect and see how these things cannot be happening haphazardly on their own. Look at the order, look at the harmony, look at the interconnectivity, look how they're all related to each other, look how the benefits that come with them, look at the wisdom, look at the the rahmah, the mercy, look at the knowledge, look at the order, look all these favors, all these things are all, we learn how to see the addresses from the world of the unseen beyond the veil of the so-called seen, until the veil of the seen becomes like a mirror to the unseen. It is the sun. The Quran is also the sun. What does the sun bring? There is darkness at night. You don't see what's going on. The sun comes, there is light, and we see what is what. It is the foundation and plan of the spiritual world of Islam. Because all these things that we are seeing here, they look to deep reflection, to living from the heart, and more so living from the soul, from the spirit, because the heart is the means to access to who we truly are. When we are stuck in the world of the seen, we are also stuck to living from the ego, from the most primitive way of being. And we have, the heart is there, but we are not connected in a conscious way. The heart is only experienced as emotions, and those emotions, instead of being means to connect to the spirit, to who we truly are, become more like they have control over us. As if like, now I am angry, or now I am sad, no one can speak to me, or things like that. It means we are totally unconscious, totally heedless. And that sadness, that is only a mindless reaction to something going on in the world without, and why we are in that reaction? Because we don't see the unseen, we don't see the beautiful names and the meanings and purposes beyond the veil of those events. The Quran is also the map of the world, of the worlds of the hereafter. This is very important. We can only start seeing that this world is indicating another realm when we start connecting with the world of the unseen, the world of the beautiful names of God, the eternal beautiful names of God. So there is what we are experiencing here and now is only the tip of the iceberg, and it's the best indication that we are repeatedly called to focus on in the Quran is the transience, what we are so attached to, and we hold on, grab, we want to grab in this world. Everything, all that is transient. It means it's flowing, leaving. The now is not. It's always moving, always flowing. So it can't be for itself. That's the best and the clearest area indication that it's coming from somewhere and going somewhere else. So that somewhere will start, we will start being at least open to what's going on. Where is it coming from? Where is it going to? What is the meaning of all this? What is this flow? And the more we realize that it's a flow, the more the heart, the soul, the spirit won't be satisfied with it and won't try to grab into it and stay with it, cry after it, or put all our ambitions and our efforts to grab something into that flowing world. So it's the map of the worlds The Quran is the map. It means we start seeing the world in a way that is reminding us of the world of the hereafter. The Quran is the distinct expounder, the lucid exposition, articulate proof, and clear translator of the divine essence, the attributes and deeds. Of course, it's all there to make known to us our sustainer. And then we realize that everything in the creation is actually, when we start reading them under the translation of the Quran, or the light of the sun of the Quran, we realize that everything is here to make him known with his attributes, his names, and I don't want to go into the details, but we did once talk about shu'unat and attributes, the sifat, and the that. So the that is where true tawheed is going to happen. If we can't go beyond the asma, it means when will we truly surrender to the that? When the ego is totally surrendered. We totally accept and live that there is no separate, independent I that I can talk about, that we feel like I am worshiping God, I am being grateful to God, as if I'm doing something for God. There is no such a thing. Everything that I'm doing is from him. I am inspired. I see through his seeing. I am grateful through even the gratitude that I feel, I am made to experience it. I am only have one thing, which is I could deny, but when I don't and acknowledge the reality, that's the surrender, that's worship. So there is nothing to be proud of, nothing to claim for myself. Without that, there is no true tawheed, there is always a door open for shirk. If there is a little bit of a feeling that I am doing something, then the door is open to shirk. The Quran is the instructor, the true wisdom, the teacher, the guide to the world of humanity. Here, as Isra was saying, it's not an address. The Quran is not a message or a book, a sacred book for a particular community. Whoever follows the guidance of the Quran is part of that community. In the Quran, the addressee is generally all humanity. Sometimes it's all you believers, but these believers are not like special geographical community or something. Whoever comes becomes surrenders and becomes a believer. But generally, it's all the world of humanity. It is both a book of wisdom and a book of Sharia, a book of law. Unless we understand all this until here, and then we understand it as a book of wisdom, then a law of Sharia. If we start from the beginning as a law of Sharia, subhanAllah, sometimes you find there's not even basic wisdom in some extraction of a rule. So you can understand why, because we're missing so many things. Our interpretation can also be, can reduce this eternal speech of God that is to make known him known, and that is primarily out of rahmah. As we are told in the Quran, the messengers are sent out of rahmah. It is mercy for us because it makes it easier for us to know our life purpose. And the Quran is also sent as rahmah. And that's why the rahmah, mercy and care and love and care, because rahmah is much more than mercy, is, we are told, it encompasses everything. Not that the other names of God don't encompass everything. His power is everywhere. He knows everything. But mercy is because it looks to us, we feel the need for it more.
Dr. Amy, there's a question here in the chat. It says, how do we connect free will and total true surrender to the will of God?
Free will, and free will is, as it says, it's free. It's up to me to choose or not. So the process may take some time, but if I have the intention, and if I make the choice, the decision, the choice is make the decision to choose to surrender, to choose to not hold on to these false claims of the ego. The more I renew this intention every day, the more the heart is going to soften, and it becomes easier and easier to surrender when something comes and I am tried, let's say. So it's a matter of decision, because that's how we use our free will. It's free. We get to choose. So there is only one way, is to renew the decision, because we are used to not surrendering, not living consciously. So in order to consciously surrender, it's a repetition, repeating again and again. Yes, God is my Rabb, is my sustainer. I am being sustained here and now. This needs to be repeated until it becomes easier and easier to surrender. And we are not given new day without purpose. Each day, either we go backward, or we are told in the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says, if you are not going forward in your ubudiyah day after day, it means you are going backward, because you don't stay in the same point, because there is new creation, new things are happening in our life. How I answer them is either with surrender and acceptance, and that will bring me closer to God, closer to my goal, or when I'm not doing that, by default, without realizing, I'm doing the opposite and I'm getting further away. So the whole thing is our part is to choose, to intend, to surrender, to accept the reality that what I call I, what I call mine, is all given, all created, and the experiencing or the unfolding of this reality is going to unfold in my life. It will unfold if I renew this intention.
Dr. Yamina, I think the person is asking a bit different. I mean, this was helpful that you unpacked how do we really surrender. But there's an additional note here. How is it different from saying that it is God's decision to make me surrender rather than my free will?
Sorry, how is it? God makes me surrender?
Yeah, I think the question is more about how to reconcile free will with surrendering to will of God.
Oh.
I mean, do you have a microphone? I don't know your name. Or I don't know if we can.
It depends what you mean by surrender. But there is no need to go into the philosophy of this, because free will, we all know that we have it. Right now, if you are sitting, you can choose to stand up. That's it. No one is forcing us. Whether I'm sitting or I'm standing, it's all created by God. For instance, I can decide I'm going to fly now. Let me fly like a bird. So it means I have already been given options, and those options I can choose, but the options are all created for me. When I stand up, I don't know, I don't have the power to stand up, or I don't know, if something happened, I won't be able to stand up, I can't do anything about it. It's like I can look at something or look at something else. But the seeing is not under my control. That's it. So it's clear that we have free will. We use it in the way we choose because that's the will of God. That's why we're responsible for the outcome, even though we don't have any power to create anything.
Would you like to talk? And if you could identify your name.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for taking my question. I apologize. I'm outside walking, so if there's some noise around, I apologize. You know, I totally agree with you. I never had an issue believing that we have free will and then we are responsible for the decisions that we make. The part where I get confused is when I hear that, not that I'm against it, I just want to see how we can reconcile the two ideas, which is when Allah, when we say we cannot take credit for anything or for the results, I would say, of any actions we're making, because at the end of the day, it is Allah's decision to make things happen. This is the part where I'm saying, are we always free to do whatever we want? And then by the will of God, things will happen based on his decision. That's, to me, this is how I understand it.
No,
it's like
by his power, not his decision. Because
power.
When we say decision, we are already giving all the will to God and forgetting that God himself willed that we get to decide. But our decision is limited. Our free will is limited. That's maybe another part of what you asked, because in what happens in our life, lots of things, we don't have a choice over them. So we have a limited will, and we are responsible only for the part that we get to choose.
Okay.
However, what we choose matters as far as going on the straight path or not, accepting to live as created, sustained beings or not. Otherwise, we don't get to choose where we are born, to which family, so many things we don't get to choose. But those things don't matter as far as the message of the Quran is concerned. Wherever we are born, in whatever conditions, everyone is free to accept that, yes, everything is being created and sustained. Things can't happen on their own or not. Right now, I have no say, no control over my breathing. I can say yes, or I can say I don't. People don't say no, I have control. People say, you know what the ego says? None of my business, why should I think about it? When we say that, we say, like some people say, I'm agnostic. I don't know. Well, you know that you may not know who is controlling and sustaining my breathing right now. In order to get to know him, you have to pursue that path, but we can be for sure testify that it's not me. If I don't take that step makes the whole difference. If I don't want to take that step, because taking that step, accepting that reality means the ego, I'm questioning the reality of my ego, then I say, I don't want to think about it. By default, what we do, we live our life as though we have the control, as though it's my life, as though I make all my decisions and in my life, as though this is my life, I do whatever I want with it. And then it's a small, our free will is very limited, but the outcome is totally opposite. Like, it's huge. The difference it makes in our life and the quality of our life here and now and in the hereafter is huge. And that's all we are concerned about. Otherwise, I have free will, but like I was born in this family, or I was born tall or short or this or that. No one will ask us about that. And the quality of our life is not really an outcome of that. It seems to be when we live from the ego. The moment we start living from the spirit, the soul, then we realize all the other circumstances. For instance, our body, our physical appearance, our physical bodies and things are just like you have a car. Something like that. I mean, it's useful. We use it. So we are just grateful that we have that, instead of why isn't it like this? Why it could have been like this? And we're missing the whole point because we don't have the time for that. If we truly know how everything is flowing here and now, everything is flowing, everything can end right now, and we are busy with things that from the perspective of all being is really tiny, plus it's foolish because it doesn't bring anything. It doesn't even bring worldly happiness. So it's a change of perception, and with that, a change of perspective as well. This perspective slowly will add the perspective of eternity, eternal life, life after death, and how we view ourselves and the world will totally transform, inshallah. So yes, it is a limited free will, but it matters the most. How we use it matters a lot. So the Quran is also both a book of prayer and worshipful ubudiyya, worshipful, and a book of ibadah and ubudiyya. So it is a book of prayer, of course. But he doesn't start from there, because without understanding all this, prayer, we are praying to God, worshiping God. Unless we know who God is, we can't talk about worship and prayer. A book of command and summon. Here it's command, here is amr, and summon is da'wah, invitation. So yes, there is command, but that command only makes sense within this broad perspective of knowing what the Quran is and how it is related to who speaks in the Quran. Because when we have a text, as Imam Nursi says, if we find a text written, it doesn't mean much if we don't know who is saying it and to whom and for what purpose. This is something I think we talked about before. So what he says in Quran is from God. God means my sustainer, the one who is sustaining me in life here now and sustaining everyone, the one who is giving me all this desire for happiness, for eternal happiness, the happiness of everyone and everything I care for. He is the one who gave me that need, that desire, that longing. So of course, if he says don't do something, it means it's not just don't do something because I created you, you have to do whatever I want. It means it's not good for you, you know what you may not be aware. It's like a child, you say don't go close to the stove, it's dangerous, or do this is better for you. Don't eat candies, you can't eat candies at all meals just because you feel that it tastes sweet. It's not good for you. And a book of invocation and divine knowledge. Here, invocation is actually dhikr, invocation and remembering of God. Because the more we remember, the more we get to know him. Because if I learn something and I don't repeat it, it won't. It's like, can we learn to drive just by through a manual or even through watching a video about it? You have to sit and drive, and you can't learn only in once driving. The more you drive, the better you are at it. So here also, it is a book for all spiritual needs. It is a sacred library offering books appropriate to the various ways of all the saints. Actually, the Arabic is al-awliya, it means the people who are the friends of God. They are close, they know him. The veracious one, as-siddiqeen, the purified one, al-asfiya, and the discerning scholars, al-muhaqqiqeen. Now consider the effulgence of miraculousness in the Quran's repetitions, which are imagined to be a fault by some critics. He's also choosing the repetition because if you look at the work of Orientalists, this is a topic that they always bring. One of the topics of the criticizing the Quran is the repetition. This ayah is appearing, or sometimes an expression appears many times. Since the Quran is both a book of invocation, of dhikr, of remembrance, and a book of prayer is dua, and a book of summon, da'wah, the repetition in it is desirable. Indeed, it is essential and most eloquent. You want to repeat something for it to be grounded. It's not as the faulty people imagine. And it's clear here. The mark of invocation and remembrance is illumination through repetition. How do we remember? Like we are told in the Quran, repeat dhikr, remembering God and invoking God, repeat it. We are told again and again. It is repeated. The repetition itself, I mean, it's not repeated in the same word. The Orientalists have 2 points. A story or a theme that is repeated, or sometimes an expression is repeated in exactly the same or almost exactly the same form. So here, for instance, remembering God is repeated in the Quran. And we are told each time to remember God constantly. What does it mean? It means this is something that we truly need. It's like someone saying, like, do this, something that is really good for you. Or don't do this. Don't lie. Don't, whatever. The fact that it is repeated in the Quran mirrors the fact that we need it in real life. So if something, this is something we discussed before, again, Imam Nursi repeats it in different places, is that, for instance, we eat 2-3 times a day. Actually, if we eat once a day, it will be okay, enough. Even if we were to eat once every 2 days, we may be a little hungry, but it's okay. But when it comes to water, we need it more often. If we drink once every 2 days, it'll be very difficult to live normally. But when it comes to air, we need it constantly. So it's the same in the Quran. What we need, there are things that are repeated a lot, that are repeated less and less. It means the ruh, the spirit, the human spirit, needs that. It is food for the spirit. Remembering God, invoking God and remembering God is something that we need, and it is illumination through repetition. As we repeat it, we start feeling that, oh yes, I need it. It's like people who don't drink much water. I know someone who didn't drink much water, because you can get water through food as well. And then the doctor said that whatever the illness that person had is to do with a lack of water. So the person had to put water in a bottle so that the family knew how much water she was drinking. And it was very difficult for her to drink the water because she was not used to. It took a while, and afterwards they stopped putting it in the bottle because she started feeling thirsty. So it's just like us with us, especially since we spend so much time in ghafla, and everything around us, the culture, everything is encouraging ghafla. Instead of encouraging being conscious, we already have an inclination to be, to live in heedlessness, and everything is pulling us that way. So remembering becomes even more important. And the more we remember, the more we will feel at peace. Oh, this is what I was missing and I was not even aware of. Alhamdulillah. The mark of dua, of prayer, is strengthening through repetition. The mark of command, amr, and summons is strengthening through repetition. Moreover, not everyone is capable of always reading the entire Quran. Most of the time, we don't read the entire Quran from beginning to end. That's why we do that, especially in the month of Ramadan, for instance. But most usually, we can read the surah. For instance, lots of people read Surah Al-Kahf on Friday. Therefore, the most important purposes of the Quran are included in most of the longer surahs. So not everyone is going to read the whole Quran every time. So you find lots of things put in a chapter. So that chapter becomes like a smaller Quran as far as the benefits and the goals are concerned. That is to say, in order that no one is deprived certain of the Quran's aims, like divine unity, the resurrection. The resurrection is so, whenever it talks about who God is, or this Quran is from God, and then right after it talks about how everything is an ayah indicating the power of God and everything, and right after there will always be something to do with the resurrection. This reasoning is repeated in the Quran, until, if you pay attention, you start thinking in that way and looking at the creation in that way as well. That's the way to teach, especially when it's something that we are not familiar with, and something that we, without God speaking to us and teaching us, how would we know? So certain aims, like divine unity and the resurrection of the dead, and the story of Moses, since it's to do with these two aims, is repeated, but each time from a different perspective. Furthermore, like bodily needs, spiritual needs are also various. Human beings' needs, some of them, every breath, like air, the body needs air. The spirit needs the word who in Arabic is at the end of a verb, or it means him, his, he, who, referring to God. Some are needed every hour, like Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, MashaAllah, Inshallah, Tabarakallah, all these blessed phrases that remind us of God, and so on. That means, so some are needed constantly like air, some are needed like water, some are needed every hour. That means the repetition of ayat, verses of the Quran, arises from the repetition of need. If it is repeated in the Quran, the more something is repeated, the more it's attracting our attention. It means we need it. A different, we need it to repeatedly reflect on it. We need it. The more it's repeated, the more we learn it, the more we also, it's a sign that we need to repeat it verbally and reflect on it and live with it. It means its message, what it is indicated, pointing to, is also something that we need. It makes the repetition in order to highlight the need and awaken it, because sometimes, for instance, we could be eating, but we could be eating junk food. The more we start eating more healthily, the more that junk starts tasting. I don't know if you stopped eating, for instance, cookies, and then if you eat it like once in a while, once or twice a year, when you eat it, it has an aftertaste, like it tastes chemicals. And you wonder, I remember, like me, how come I used to love this thing? This thing smells and tastes like chemicals. Doesn't taste good. But there was a time where I did not taste that aftertaste and it tasted good. So like that, we start getting used to true meaning, true knowledge, meaning and knowledge of God that pertains to Akhirah, that pertains to our true purpose on earth. And the other things will be like junk, things that will not change our life, will just take us, make us forget about our istiqamah, our true destination. All distracting things. and things that used to feel exciting will become more and more impatient when we don't have the patience to deal with them, because we start feeling that this is all empty. So what if I learn it, or so what if I don't learn it? I don't know about it. Also, the Quran is the founder, muassis. It contains the fundamentals. Here, fundamentals is the essence of the clear religion, al-din al-mubin, and the foundation of the world of Islam. It changes human social life and is the answer to the repeated questions of various groups. Repetition is necessary for a founder in order to establish things. Repetition is necessary for strengthening. Clarification, verification, and repetition are necessary to emphasize the fundamentals, because it's bringing fundamentals. It's like akhirah is the goal. Everything revolves around remembering God, knowing God, loving God, doing everything in the name of God. It's a totally new way of being. It needs to be, we need that repetition. And this repetition is going to happen every day from a different perspective. Also, it speaks of such mighty matters. This is very important. And nuanced truth. The matters concern our being or non-being. Because if there is no akhirah, right now, life is so fragile that it's like anything can end anytime. And when it ends, whether you live 40 years or 60 years or 100 or 200, at the end of the day, it's the same. If there is no akhirah, no after death. And this is not like when I die, I'll think about it. No, it's important because it concerns us right here and now. If there is no true future, then tomorrow is a fake future, because at the end of the day, all our efforts, all our striving, will have no meaning. So no after death, if there is transience and nothing else, then it negates everything in our life. And we talked about it before in the 12th and 13th droplets. So these matters are really mighty matters and nuanced truth. These truths are not like that numerous repetitions are necessary. These truths are so nuanced, they concern so many things in our life, so many, they're just to understand rahma in what context, how. So repetition is really, really necessary in different forms in order to establish them in everyone's hearts. This being said, especially in establishment them in everyone's heart, because to know intellectually is not enough. We need to truly live this reality, experience it. Otherwise, it won't change our life. This being said, the repetitions in the Quran, this is also very powerful, are only seeming repetition. All this is saying, even if you don't understand, even if you think that they are repetitions, they are needed. But he's saying, actually, they are only apparently repetition. In reality, each verse has numerous meaning. Each verse in one context has and when you take that verse in different contexts, in each context, it's going to reveal a different benefit, different wisdom, different aspects, different levels. In each place, because it appears in the Quran in different places, a seeming repetition is mentioned with a different meaning for different benefits, for different reasons, different purposes. It's like, I mean, of course, inshallah, it shouldn't be, what came to my mind is not directly related. We can understand, and if we had time, actually there are places in the Risale where he talks about the repetition, and he takes a specific area, for instance, and in this passage, look what it means, and in this passage, look what it means, and in each one, it's a different, for a different purpose. Those purposes don't contradict each other, they complement each other. But it's not really a repetition in the way some people see it. But even like if we have a little bit of good intention in our life, lots of things can be used in different ways. I mean, if you take water, we can use it, for instance, in cooking many dishes, or let's say just soups. Someone can't say, oh, you keep using water again and again. Like, I don't see how all these soups are the same because you keep pouring water in all of them. No. Water is an ingredient. It's one of the main ingredients in a soup. And each soup can be totally different. I mean, even for something as simple as this, how come when it comes to the Quran, you can see that there is no good intention, because otherwise you see a repetition. You say, oh, it's the same ayah. Why is it repeated like here as well? So you start asking question and listening instead of saying, oh, it keeps repeating the same thing. It means from the beginning, there is already a pre-understanding and the intention to demonize something. This is not, where do I find a weak point? SubhanAllah, what they think is a weak point is not a weak point at all. Actually, it makes sense because it goes hand in hand with the purpose of the Quran. It is to enlighten people, to teach people, to prepare them for akhirah, to help them enhance their humanity, and so that they promote their potential to the highest, to get ready for eternal happiness, inshallah. Also, the Quran being unspecific and concise, this is another objection. Being unspecific, it means not specific, and concise doesn't give details in certain matters to do with the universe, the cosmos, the world, is a flash of miraculousness for the purpose of guidance. He's saying, some say, why it doesn't give details about these things? And he's saying this is a case of miraculousness. For what? For the purpose of guidance, because the Quran is not here to give you details about the world. It's not a book of science, for instance. It's a book of guidance. If you ask, why does the all-wise Quran not speak of beings in the same way as philosophy and science? It leaves some matters in a brief form. For instance, when it says about the sun runs, it means the sun is moving, but doesn't gives you exactly the shape of the orbit and this and that. Of course, the question is coming from someone who is already putting science up there in their mind. But we live in an age where people knowingly or mostly unknowingly worship science, in the sense that science is a source of authority. Most people don't even know what science is and how science works. And because of that, science is used as a tool for power and politics, and because you can manipulate the people's mind with it. If science says it, it must be true. Which science, which scientist, that's unclear. It leaves some matter in brief form, and some it speaks of in simple and superficial way that is easy in the general view, does not wound general feelings, and does not weary or tax the minds of ordinary people. Why is this? So the answer, philosophy has strayed from the path of truth. That's why. If you want, here he is giving a short answer, because these kinds of things, the difference between philosophy, and here he's talking really about the materialist philosophy of science, because the philosophy of science is materialist. It doesn't mean that science has to be materialist, but for the moment it is. In the 12th word, you can find that. And Isra, was it 17th word as well? In many words, but starting from the 12th. There is a comparison between the two.
I think it's
Also,
maybe
12th, 13th, I think 15th or something. Some others as well, not only the 12th. So also, of course, you have understood from the passwords. So password, he has talked about it specifically. And that they teach that the all-wise Quran speaks of the universe in order to make known the divine essence, attributes, and names. So he's saying the Quran speaks of the universe in order to make God known. So the purpose is not to speak of the universe for the universe. That is, it explains the meanings of the book of the universe in order to make known its creator. That means it looks at being not for themselves, but for their creator. That's exactly what an ayah is. If you have words here, for instance, by, there is a B, there is a Y. The words here, these words, we don't look at the shape. Why is the shape like this? The shape is how to measure it, and B, Y. Well, no, we already know this is B and this is Y, and it means by, and by means has a meaning. This is what a symbol is. We see it and we know what it means. We see here Quran, and we know it's referring, this Quran is referring to something out there. And we are not concerned about if it's written in whether English or Arabic script or any other script. As long as we can decipher the script, we move on, because the word there is a symbol. It's an ayah. It's a sign, actually. In language, the letters are called signs. So here also, anything in the universe is a sign. So when we learn how to read everything in the way it's taught in the Quran, when we can Quranize everything, then everything will become an ayah that makes God known, its creator, its maker known. So the Quran teaches us to look at everything, not for themselves, but for their creator. Also, the Quran addresses everyone. So that's one very important point. The second one is that the Quran speaks to everyone, not only to scientists or people who are especially studying the philosophy, but philosophy and science look at beings for themselves and addresses scientists in particular. This is the first one is more important. Look at beings for themselves. There is nothing beyond. Actually, if you want to talk about anything, this means this, there is order here, how come? Stop, this is not science. So science is totally and only concerned with things themselves. That's in total contrast with the Quran. In which case, since the all-wise Quran makes being evidences and proofs, the evidence has to be superficial, since it's going to talk to everyone about God. So it talks in general about things so that people can understand. Once we get the reasoning from the Quran, then we can apply it. And you are a scientist, then you can apply it to anything you study. But studying in details does not make you know God more or better. It's actually, it can be dangerous if you are not familiar with the way of the Quran, because then you forget about how everything is making known God, and you can easily get drowned into things themselves, as if it's happening on its own. So it's not necessary, but just like someone is a carpenter, the other one is a chef, is a cook, another one is a painter, someone can be a scientist studying something, some molecules or something in a lab or something. And all of them can make whatever they deal with a means to get to know the Creator better. But in order in the Quran to teach everyone, it can't give examples that I don't even understand what it's talking about. It doesn't make sense. It means the question is from someone who doesn't know what the aim of the Quran. So here it says, it has to take examples that can be quickly understood in the general view. And since the Quran of guidance addresses all classes of people, the ordinary people, which form the most numerous class, and even like a scientist, all the scientists, even more nowadays, each one knows specifically their field. So the more something technical is given as an example, the more most people want to understand. And since the aim is not those things, but how something indicates the power and the knowledge and the source of life and everything, then the more general the example is, the better it is. Because once everyone understands, those who are specialized in something can take that and apply it, each one to his own field. And since the Quran of guidance addresses all classes of people, the ordinary people, which form the most numerous class, want guidance which is concise, with unnecessary things being vague, and which brings subtle things close with comparisons, and which does not change things which, in their superficial view, are obvious into an unnecessary or even harmful form, lest it causes them to fall into error. For example, it says about the sun is a revolving lamp or lanterns. وَجَعَلَ الشَّمْسَ سِرَاجًا. The sun, for it does not speak of the sun for itself and its nature. It says the sun is revolving, a revolving lamp. Why? Because it's not speaking about the sun, but because it is a source of mainstream of an order and a center of a system. And this order and system are mirrors to the maker's skill, to his knowledge, to his power, to his wisdom, to his also, it says the sun runs its course. والشمس تجري.
Yes.
Thus, whatever the reality of this revolving, it does not affect the order. Whatever the revolving is, science can deal with it. And a scientist who is a student of the Quran, the more details he knows about the revolving, the more hikmah and the more power and the more knowledge he may see. If he is not, it may even take him away because he gets fascinated by the revolving and forgets about the source, the maker. Because I've seen many Muslim scientists that start saying it has nothing to do with this. God has nothing to do with science. As if science is what? Science is not, science is just studying the universe. Who created this universe? You start wondering what happened to them. So it's not always good to be too much into the details if we don't know what the Quran is and we have not studied this, if we are just Muslims by birth, which means we don't deny, but we don't know anything else.
Dr. Emina, in the sentence right before, it says, through calling to mind the orderly disposals of divine power in the revolutions of winter and summer, and day and the night. So even if the person doesn't know that the sun revolves around itself and actually it's the earth revolving around the sun, for many centuries people thought sun is revolving around the earth. But the Quran leaves it very open. It says the sun revolves, ash-shamsu tajri. And it doesn't go into detail, sun revolves around itself, and the earth actually revolves around the sun. It's not too specific, so people didn't get confused in the previous centuries, because for them it was very clear that the sun is revolving around the earth. The Quran just leaves it vague. The sun revolves, because what matters is that whether you're mistaken about what is revolving around what, or whether you know the speed of that revolving or not, all those technical details can be figured out over time. They are really not essential for the purpose of life. They are technical details. So
it says
what
the sun revolves, it makes tremendousness. That's what matters.
Yeah, the people can recognize the order. There is an order. Whether you were mistaken about what is revolving around what, or it's vague, doesn't matter. Sun is revolving and there is orbit and there is an order. And anyone can notice this. You can be illiterate farmer living in 10th century and you see that revolving in the summer and winter and day and night. There is some turning, revolving order going on, and there is an order. And so that order then is a sign to the tremendousness of the Saniya, the maker.
And that's the point here in the Quran. This ayah is from Surah Yasin, and it's in 36-38. But if we look at 36-37, we are told, and they have a sign, an ayah, in the night. We strip the day light from it, and lo and behold, they are in darkness. And then 36-38, and they have a sign in the sun too. It runs its determined course laid down for it by the Almighty, the All-Knowing. And then 38, 39 carries on, and in the moon, and it carries on. So now, so it says the sun runs its course, that is, the sun revolves through calling to mind the orderly disposals of divine power in the revolution of winter and summer, and day of night. With the phrase the sun revolves, it makes, the Quran makes understood the maker's tremendousness. Thus, whatever the reality of this revolving is, it does not affect the order which is woven and observed, and which is the purpose. It also says, and he set the sun as a lamp. This is in Surah Nuh, Surah 71. Actually, it's in the end of Ayah 16, but in Ayah 15, 71, 15, we are told, do you not see how God has created 7 heavens in full harmony, one above the other? And 71, 16, it says, and he has placed within them, within the 7 heavens, the moon as a light, and set up the sun as a lamp. So you see here, you can see, don't you see that it is how God has created? And the other one, it's, don't you see the ayat, how this is an ayah? True, depicting through the word lamp, the word in the form of a palace or an abode, and the things within it as decoration, necessities and provisions prepared for human beings and living beings, and inferring that the sun is also subjugated. Musakhar, sakhara lakum is something that is repeated in the Quran, is subjugated candle holder. It makes known the mercy and bestowal of the Creator. He makes to you, he creates, he makes this to you like this, he makes it. It means whatever the benefits you are getting from that, he is giving to you, because that sun can't do it himself. Now look and see what this foolish, it is really foolish, and prattling philosophy says. And here I like that the word prattling, because like you talk and talk and talk, at the end it's all foolishness. And you know, the sun is a vast burning liquid mass. It causes the planet, if you go and take elementary school or middle school science book, you will find all kinds of things are all doing it themselves. The sun is doing this, the plant is getting its energy from the sun. If the sun is so powerful, why would it let its energy being absorbed by the plant, and the plant are snatching it from it? The sun is a vast burning liquid mass. It causes the planet, which have been flung off from it, to revolve around it. How would it know? How can it make them? And they all have to follow a particular order. Come on. Does it have, like, as we're told in the Quran, does it have knowledge? Can it think? What does it have? Its mass is such and such, it is this, it is that. It does not afford the spirit, the satisfaction of and fulfillment of true knowledge. It's information, but the information cannot be neutral. Either you tell it as it is, it's all being made this way, or you tell it as it is itself being this way. It's doing it, it's causing everything, because there is no neutral language. Either you say it's doing it or it's being done. And if you go go and check the science books and you will see how everything is doing everything. There's no way they say, we are not concerned about if there is a creator or not. Yeah, but you're speaking as if there is no creator, as if that thing is the creator. And it's full of contradiction because you're saying something unconscious is doing all kinds of conscious things that require lots of wisdom and knowledge and power and all kinds of things, which is totally impossible. It does not, that's why it does not afford the spirit the satisfaction and fulfillment of true knowledge, just a terrible dread and a fearful wonder, a piece of, can you imagine this huge burning liquid is there. There is no one controlling it. Anything can happen anytime. Can you imagine if one day it falls on the earth and the earth is tiny next to it, or something happens to it, or it explodes, or whatever. At least you feel, even if you don't feel alienation, because you don't take it seriously usually, at least you feel alienated from it. It has nothing to do with me, as if. But every day we wait for the sun. We actually have an intimate relationship with the sun. So there is only one way to tolerate the scientific, materialistic scientific way, is to live in heedlessness. Heedlessness becomes a rahmah in there. It does not speak of it as the Quran does. You may understand from this the value of the matters of philosophy, whose inside is hollow and outside ostentatious. So do not be deceived by its glittering exterior and be disrespectful towards the most miraculous expositions of the Quran, because the question already is putting science as an authority and therefore disrespecting of the Quran is speaking in general. I've seen this a lot being asked. And what's the big deal about it? And you see Muslims trying to say, look, this is in science, they found this. It means elevating the Quran because something, science talked about it. What's the point of reference? Science. The miracles in the Quran, the scientific miracles of the Quran. Even if it's true, the way we talk about it is betray an attitude that is still revering science without knowing exactly what science is actually. So this reminds me of in Surah Al-Rum, which is Surah 30, Ayah 7, we are told they only know the outer surface, 7 to 9, 37 to 39. They only know the outer surface of this world's life, and they are utterly unaware of the hereafter. Have they not reflected about their own selves? God did not create the heavens and the earth and everything between them without truth and purpose and an appointed time, yet many people deny that they will meet their Lord. So it's not that we deny that he created with truth and purpose. But if we don't live like we are meeting our Lord, it means we are living as though things are created haphazardly. Have they not traveled through the land and seen how their predecessors met their end? They were mightier than them. They cultivated the earth more and built more upon it. Their own messengers also came to them with clear ayat, clear signs. God did not wrong them, they wronged themselves. So they have only an outer, they only know the outer surface of this world's life, and anything that looks to akhirah. Akhirah means not only to akhirah directly, but anything that reminds us of akhirah. It means anything that looks to ghaib, to looks to the unseen, to looks to the beautiful names of God. All that doesn't exist. This is exactly the dominant culture now, and the dominant culture gains its authority. The church is science now, the modern church. Astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. Can you imagine, like
It's also, Hocam, completely missing the point that, for instance, through technology we're able to fly. So if we are flying, so then materialistic approach is true. No, you can still fly and have all these formulas. And actually, a lot of the early modern scientists were religious people, like in Newton.
Technology has nothing to do with how you interpret things.
The creator is sustaining the sun and the earth, and still calculate, the distance from sun, or fly, make planes to fly, bi'idhnillah. So people are confusing that technology does not actually justify the materialistic approach to say that the sun is just there somehow, and we're just lucky to be here. Like, I have seen this kind of vocabulary in the name of science, in science museums, in science texts, in science videos, like we're lucky to be here, and it just happened that, I remember even
although
of Ramadan,
because it is materialistic, technology is used more and more not to serve humanity, but to serve the benefits of a minority, and to exploit others for capitalist purposes. So it's a tool. Technology is a tool. It could be used much better. There could be more beneficial technology. It depends on the intention.
Mm-hmm.
But technology and the fact that something is working, just because someone made a wheel and the wheel works, doesn't mean that how they explain the world and being is the truth.
I even recently learned from a quantum physicist. He said that microwave was invented because, as a side of, microwave was originally made as part of, again, military industry. They were
lots of it is military.
They were trying to kill people by sending these microwaves into their water, or most of human body's water. And then, as a side, somebody said, well, maybe we can use it to heat stuff too. That's also a side of it, even microwaves. And so I was taken aback. This quantum physicist himself was also working for a weapon company, missile ranges and so on. So I was just taken aback that so much of our technology is geared, even in pharmaceutical sciences, it's geared towards business interests, and sometimes really violent.
That's why even like you are not sure how safe microwave, although we all use them, because the intention from the beginning was not to serve humanity.
A wholesome interest.
But I'm sure if we have the right attitude, we will be able to find other things.
Definitely. Actually, another scientist that I was listening, she said that she works in forest science. That's just a side point, but she said she found certain things, and she was like, when I discovered this, I thought, this is going to revolutionize the way we do agriculture or forest, the way we treat forests. And she said, of course, I was wrong, because people don't care. These, certain practices are better for, industry, forest industry, So anyhow, but even putting aside all of that, even, technology, even we assume it's nice, it's helpful, still it doesn't justify materialistic view. So what's happening is that we are just in awe of, let's say, phones and cell phones, and, and I was like, wow, we can make phones. So it's incredible. And then you turn, and the same source that says we can make these stuff seems to be also saying, even though a lot of scientists don't agree with it, but the mainstream, science
don't agree, no one will talk about you.
But they can't talk it, in their academic work. It's just, it just happens. In Ramadan, actually, a couple of years ago, we went at the eve of Ramadan to see to an observatory here who opened its doors to Muslim students and community to be able to see the Ramadan moon. But the presentation, that night we had a presentation about the moon and stuff, and it was completely materialistic, that it happened that something flung off from the earth, and it happened that it became our satellite, and it happens that many years ago, this, apparently this accident happened, and then, but that was very lucky, so we get to have our own moon, we get to have our this, that. And the whole thing seemed to be, and it's not true, because what we are seeing is incredible amount of precision and incredible amount of order, and yet there's this.
And it didn't happen only once. Every now, every second, every minute, every hour, every day, it's still holding on. How can you say
the order is order?
An accident.
Order just
it's
happened.
Not one accident. It's
and then there are kind of some events that are kind of turning points, and they call it an accident. Everything is reduced to meaninglessness, and this isn't knowledge, and it actually really doesn't give satisfaction and fulfillment to the heart. It's just really
even if it's not, it's emptiness, purposelessness, meaninglessness.
It's inshallah we can transform all of this into science in our lives, and now hopefully our hope is also to have books like that too, inshallah, to show the universe, because it's not fair to the universe to present it as if it's not meaningful, and to present as if it's just there, and somehow when we're somehow lucky and evolve this, devolve this, like this isn't like that. Inshallah someday we'll have better discourses about the universe, even in our texts and textbooks, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Yeah.
Allahumma ij'al, this is the dua at the end of this word. Allahumma ij'al al-Qur'an shifa'an lana wa likatibihi, let's say wa likutabihi wa qurra'ihi wa amthalihi min kulli da'in wa munisan lana wa lahum fi hayatina wa ba'da mamatina wa fi dunya qarinan wa fi al-qabri munisa wa fi al-qiyamati shafi'an wa ala as-sirati nura ومن النار سترا وحجابا وفي الجنة رفيقا وإلى الخيرات كلها دليلا وإماما بفضلك وجودك وكرمك ورحمتك يا أكرم الأكرمين ويا أرحم الراحمين آمين. واللهم صل وسلم على من أنزل عليه الفرقان الحكيم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين آمين آمين. O God, make the Quran healing for us and for the writer of this and his peers from all ills, and a companion to us and to them in our lives and after our deaths, and in this world and in the grave, and at the last judgment an intercessor, and on the bridge a light, and from the fire a screen and shield, and in paradise a friend, and in all good deeds a guide and a leader. And through your grace and munificence and beneficence and mercy, O most munificent of the munificent and most merciful of the merciful. Amen. O God, grant blessings and peace to the one to whom the all-wise Quran, the distinguisher between truth and false, was revealed, and to all his family and companions. Amen. Amen. Ameen. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وارنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. At the end, there is a note if you want to learn more about the Quran's miraculousness. As I said, you can find them in the Risale-i, in the work of this author. So inshallah, next time we meet, inshallah, it's Ramadan. Today I think is the 27th of Sha'ban. So Ramadan, we will meet inshallah on Saturday the 9th of April, I think it is.
Yes, not the first Saturday. This Saturday we won't meet, inshallah, but the following Saturday.
The following on the 9th of April and 3 p.m. inshallah, right? Correct?
Yes, Eastern Daylight Time. Yeah.
Inshallah. Inshallah.
Inshallah. And we
Ramadan Mubarak. May Allah accept, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah khair, Yamina. Jazakallah khair, Isra.
جزاكم الله خير. Ramadan Kareem.
Thank you.
Jazakallah khair. Just a quick question, sisters. I may not be, I planned to, but I won't be able to join in April 2nd retreat.